first one that we're going to be looking at is this idea of self-directed and goal-orientated learners. So we've got two UDL reference points here. We've got 6.1, and 6.1 is the idea that students set meaningful goals. And we've also got 8.1, which is about clarifying the meaning and purpose of goals. So making sure that students understand the goals that they've been set, so that teachers make sure that the students have clarity about their objectives, so that they have a better chance then of succeeding in the work that they're doing. And we're going to have a little look about how Canva's AI MagicWrite might help a student who wants the AI to help them refine and produce some of the goals for them. And it also gives us a chance to have a look at some of Canva's great AI features. And we're going to be looking at several of those in this next bit. So I'm just going to drop out of this slide deck for a moment, and then we're going to go into this document that I've got ready with me. I just want you to imagine in this first instance that we have a student who's been studying, a K-12 student who's been studying geothermal springs in their geography lessons. And they're going to be doing a topic review. They've maybe got an assessment coming up, they've got an exam or something coming up where they need to understand this. Now, one of the things that we want students to be able to do is with students that have autonomy is that they need to be able to use the tools at their disposal correctly. So none of what we're saying here assumes that the student has the knowledge to be able to just whack out prompts exactly as they need to be. Teachers have a role in making sure that the learner understands the way in which to query the AI. So they have to be taught the same sort of skills that you might teach a student if they were learning any other, complex engine like Google or whatever. Let's have a start with this and let's have a look at this. So I'm in the Canva doc at the moment. So I've created a doc and I've just put a little picture of a geothermal spring there. Now, this is a student. I might be thinking to myself, right, a student who's goal directed is very much interested in setting goals, targets, and always looking at the next steps ahead of them. Okay, we train students to be interested in the process of learning rather than just have we finished what's next. So it's about next step. It's about understanding what it is that we need to do and setting goals and targets so we can achieve them. So let's see what happens when we query so I'm in the doc here, and if you're working in a Canva doc and you've sort of clicked on and here with my cursor, you'll notice that at the top in the toolbar we've got MagicWrite, and this is where we begin our journey querying the Canva AI. So I'm just going to click on MagicWrite, and immediately we've got a prompt up here. It says use 5 words to describe what you want to write. Now that prompt from Canva AI is quite interesting because it sort of almost assumes that we want the AI to do the work for us. And I think it's quite important to say to students at this point, it's not, you can ask it anything that you like. You don't have to just ask it to generate content for you. In this case, I'm going to treat it a little bit like, as Dave said there, how you might use OpenAI. So what I'm going to do is just maybe put in a prompt that a student might start with, where they're sort of telling the MagicWrite, I'm studying the topic of geothermal springs and I have a test coming up. Give me 3 goals to help me ensure I have a deep knowledge of the topic. And this is really important as well, because the student that's got learner agency understands the need not just to be given surface knowledge, but the need to deepen their knowledge behind it as well. So again, everything that we cover here in terms of prompting, there's a teacher behind the student who's essentially trained them to become aware of the way in which learning works in the best way. And I'm just going to click on generate and we'll see what it generates here. So Canva's AI MagicWrite will then generate 3 quite long-winded goals for me. And we probably don't recognize these as goals per se. They're more like just some general chunks of information. It does tell us what we might do in order to achieve better in the exam, but it's not exactly in a particularly great way for us to understand. So I'm just going to insert that into my document and then take out some of the fluff at the beginning and at the end. So the important thing is that a learner who's got autonomy needs to break this content down. And at this point, this is where MagicWrite has something which we call custom prompt. Now, custom prompts within Canva's AI means that you can actually prompt the response that you got in the previous bit. So when we asked it about giving us 3 goals about the topic of geothermal springs, it's given us this information, and then we can drill that information down further using the MagicWrite custom prompt. Now to do that, we'll need to select we'll need to select the content here, 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm just going to go back to the MagicWrite, and then you'll see that there is now a new addition to that submenu called Custom Prompt. And that means that I can now prompt the response I have from the previous prompt with something a little bit more refined, a little bit more specific. So I'm just going to click on Custom Prompt, and then I'm going to ask it to shorten these descriptions and turn them into a series of bulleted items. And now essentially what it's done is it's taken the content and it's broken it down even further. And it's really important that I do that using the custom prompt, because if I took it back up to MagicWrite, it would start a new topic essentially. So what I'm doing here is I'm customizing and I'm refining the original information that I got back from the first prompt that I made. So I could then either replace it or add it below. I'm just going to replace it there for the moment. But what I could then do again, I can think about, right, let's have a think about what I might do in terms of tabular form. So I might want to make this a little bit more goal centric. So what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to use a custom prompt again, using that information I've highlighted. And this time I'm going to ask it to put it in a tabular form with a second column where I can tick if it's completed. So these are very specific prompts, and I'm not using MagicWrite just to generate content. Okay, so I'm just going to generate that and put that in. So here you go. You can see there that I've then put that in, and it's now turned into a tabular set of targets that I can then tick to being completed. That shows you how I might use custom prompts to really refine down and generate some sort of goal setting template for me. But there are some other quite cool things that we can do as well. So I'm actually going to go back a few steps to my original set of 3 rather long-winded goals. I just did a Control-Z, which went back in time. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and do another custom prompt, but this time I'm going to ask them to make the targets smart targets. So specific, measurable, okay, and attainable, realistic, and time specific. Okay, and you can see there then that for a student that wants a little bit more structure to the goals and targets that they've created, this is what they have now generated. So I'm going to add that below, and we now have quite a detailed document with my specific smart targets represented here. What you could do if you think about this is that students can use this to generate their own goals, but it's also something that teachers can also help students to do to show them how to generate their own goals too. The important thing about this is I find that when students set their own goals, they're often not specific. They often find it a very difficult thing to do. And just by doing it using the MagicWrite here, what we can actually say is, okay, you generate some goals, go back through these, which ones are pertinent, which ones are relevant. They've got something that they can mangle, got something that they can adjust and re-edit, as opposed to coming up from scratch. And then the final thing I'm going to do is show you a little bit of AI magic from Canva, which isn't necessarily that well known, is I've got this new document. Why don't I turn it into a document that's more geared towards being a planner or a goal target tracker? So I'm going to go up to the top here to where it says Magic Switch, and I'm going to click on Transform. And I'm going to transfer, it says, what do you want to transform it into? And I'm going to put a goal planner. And then it's going to take the content of that document that I produced and it's going to make it into something that we might be more likely consider to be a goal planning document in its own right. So we give it a little bit of time and read the lovely quote while we're waiting, and hopefully it won't take too long. There it is. It's created a new doc. Let's have a look at it, see if it's any good. And look, it's put it into this lovely for us. It's taken out all the fluff. And this is in Canva, Dr. Sonia. Yeah, so this is Canva's magic switch there. And it's now put that all into the goal and the smart targets. And it's even kept my picture at the bottom there. But you can see it's done a really great job of just sorting all this out for me. So Donna said, did you use the smart goal to go into the goal planner, or will it do it with text? So yeah, so all I did, if we go back to my original document here, is I prompted it to give me smart targets. And then when I Magic switched it. All it's done is basically take that content and it's put it into a much more usable, readable format for me. So you can see just how powerful, and from then I can carry on. You see, I don't have to stop here. I can then say, right, brilliant, turn that into a tabular template for me. Okay, so I could say, organize these targets in tabular form with my MagicWrite and just keep custom prompting it until I get exactly what I want. Boom. So that is MagicWrite. So just to remind you what we did there, we started out with very little. In fact, we started out with nothing except a picture. And we started out with just asking the MagicWrite to, I told it the topic I was studying and I had a test coming up, give me 3 goals to help me ensure I have a deep knowledge of the topic. Now, Dave has shared with you the document that I'm using with my prompts on it. So if you want to try, you can carry along with me. But just for the next 5 minutes, what I would like you to do is have a go with MagicWrite in Canva. So you'll need to, first of all, set up a doc in Canva. So go to Create Design, select Doc. And then when you're in the doc, have a go at choosing a topic that you'll be teaching and query MagicWrite from the perspective of a student looking for goal setting. So again, you can use our Word document as a guide if you want to use my exact prompt. And then once you get your information back, have a play with it. Use the custom prompts to break them down into descriptions and bulleted items, put them into tabular form. Have a play with it. Ask us any questions if you want to, and we'll do a quick demo if you'd like me to go through anything again. And then there's a few questions to think about what you're coming up with and how it might be useful for you. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Sonia. Right, so 5 minutes just to have a little play with that. We'll be around. I'll be able to help and advise and maybe take you through any bits that you've missed again, if you'd like me to. But I'm just going to put the timer on for 5 minutes and then we'll rejoin and yeah, just tell us what you've discovered and what you think so far.
Phil, something I find really compelling about this model is how the underlying assumptions, I think, of how students are using artificial intelligence is to do the work for them.
Yeah.
And here I find this route, especially if we can really coach students to go down this route, is it gives students the opportunity to use AI to direct them, to focus them, to offer them more challenge. And it's, I think, a new way of looking at it, in a way that I think lots of educators might see this more of an assistant as opposed to a threat to doing their work.
Absolutely. I think we need to think about where AI can become I'd say the third teacher, because I always see the classroom, the physical environment of the classroom as the second teacher. AI can become part of the third teacher, if you like, or the assistant. And we'll see other ways in which it can be used as an assistive technology, which is, of course, another UDL design option: optimize access to accessible materials and assistive and accessible technologies and tools. 4.2. So they're, and that's part of this whole block of designing multiple means of action expression. So the different ways in which learners act, the different ways learners behave and what they reach for. It's about training learners away from this idea of learned helplessness, where they just stick their hands up and ask the teacher. So what we're trying to do is to say, what have you got available to you? And there are lots of different things. So one of the questions that I've got here is, in one of the is when would you trigger the use of AI for the student? When is it available to them? There's a couple of other cool ways I'll show you afterwards about how we might use the AI to present us with goals and present us with information. But we'll give everyone a bit of a chance to, in the next couple of minutes, to have a little bit of a play. So it teaches our students to cite their sources and also how to know if information is reliable. That's really good. How does the information given by MagicWrite and AI fall into that? Well, I think it's with this particular instance, and I've chosen goal setting specifically for this, is that what we would hope students would do, and what I would hope that they would do, is be able to sort of feed it more specific information about what the teacher needs them to learn for geothermal springs. So they might have a topic coming up, and hopefully, because they've done the work or they've been in the class for any particular time, they're doing goal setting as opposed to finding out something new. So in this case, what we're asking the students to do is to choose the pertinent goals about the topics that they know less about, and then choose those goals away from the other ones. So the learner here is having to basically be discriminate between the things that aren't that relevant to them, the things that they do and don't know. Now, when it comes to generating new content, which is what we'll see in Copilot, you'll see that Copilot gives you the sources. So you know it's coming from specific sources which are reliable. But I'm just going to show you another couple of cool things with the AI, which I think are quite important. And this is, I'm going to ask MagicWrite to write down the 3 most common mistakes or misconceptions high school students make when learning about geothermal springs. These could be things like confusion around terminology or not understanding key processes, for instance. Present it with a mistake first and then provide the correction underneath. It's going to hit generate. So it's generated 3 mistakes. Again, there's quite a lot here. So what I might want to do is refine that prompt down a little bit and say, present it with a mistake first, then you provide the correction underneath as single sentences, so we don't get too much information. Here we go, that's better. I'm going to go to the plus button on the left-hand side, and I'm going to move down to where it says highlight blocks, and then I'm going to choose warning. And I'm going to take my mistake up here, just paste that in as my warning, and then underneath I'm going to put in my correction. And this is just a nice way in a doc of throwing up some of the misconceptions that students might have about the particular topic that they're studying. And this is quite a nice way of separating out different pieces of content in your doc. And you can do that with there's hazard warnings, there's errors, there's all sorts of different things, but it's quite a nice way of getting students to see bits that might trip them up in the exam. So Alberto says, I think that more than cite the sources this text is created with an LLM would be interesting to motivate our students to share the prompt, why they use them and how they check the data. Absolutely. And I think all of that, Alberto, is feeding into this idea of helping students to understand the process of what it is that they're doing and how they know that that's all helpful. And it's all part of that reflection on their own behaviors, their own learning, and about the content that they receive. And it makes them much more better at that sort of critical thinking too, regardless of the source, whether it's an LLM, a teacher, a student. So it's that sort of cross-checking, isn't it, of data, which is so important.